So now on to video number 5. We have our ears cut out, okay, and we've got the holes for the screws drilled out as well. Now this part is fairly interesting because we've already pre-assembled the helmet to some degree, okay. So there's several points to take note. The fact that these are nuts and bolts rather than rivets, so we can still move them, because you might have to move them depending on where the earpieces and where the screws from the earpieces go. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean in a few minutes. The other thing was, remember, the edge looked a little bit untidy, and I'll show you what I mean by the ears basically covering them up. Okay, so the process of cutting before is usually, when you're doing it for the first time, might take a while, because what you want to do is have lots and then cut it down and offer it up to the helmet and make sure there's enough to actually fit the curves and fit onto the ear cap there. Now a little bit of space in between is accurate, apparently. Not massive ones, I mean, you don't want it sticking out like that, but a little bit of space is okay. You also need to take into account that you'll be screwing and bolting these down onto the helmet, so there's a degree of compression from that as well. The next thing is, there is a particular shape from the back half of the helmet that looks like the ear, and you kind of roughly trim it based on that before, but when you offer it up, sometimes the fit's not great or the overhang is too much. You can still disassemble the helmet and then trim it back down again. In this case, it's pretty good fit, as you can see, the curve around the tubes and around the ears like that. So I'm quite happy with it, and that bit covers up the bottom there and it looks beautiful. The only slight problem I have, I think, is that the screw at that bottom sometimes lines up with the screw at the bottom of the earpiece. In this case, I might have gotten away with it. So the next bit I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it down, and I said you can still trim and change it because of the bolt system, which is great. In the meantime, I'm just going to drill these. Okay, so I'm going to hold it down like that and drill a hole right through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill the top 2 holes first. Again, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake at this point, as long as it's not on the surface of the ear, because you can still shift the holes if you need to. Right through. And then I place the screws for this bit. So these are where the long screws go. They fit through the ear caps and through the helmet itself. There we go. And like I said, don't worry if you don't have them 100% right the first time, because you can always shift them again. So I tend to like to bolt these in first so that I can adjust the bottom screw. I'll show you what I mean in a few minutes. So that's it in place now, and as you can see, it doesn't sit entirely flush, but then you're going to tighten it with screws and bolts, so that will be pushed into it. And because it's either HIPS or ABS plastic, there's a degree of movement in it, and you can force the plastic into positions. So big gap there, but you need to remember that that's going to be pushed down and that's going to be tightened up, and the same for here as well. What I tend to do is then try and find a nice good position for it, find out where it is, there we go, and then screw down onto that as well. So that hopefully will be the last hole to do. There we go, and then I will tighten up all the screws and show you what it looks like. Alright. So I went to get my trusty screwdriver, so there was lots of space just now at the top, and I've already tightened the top 2. As you can see, I've really squished it down, and the bolts really try and push the plastic together. You can still see a big gap here, So I'm just going to tighten up that last screw down here. Now be careful, especially if your helmet is a shiny ABS that you don't intend to paint, because what you don't want at this moment is to slip and cause a big sort of scratch across your shiny ABS plastic. Like I said, it squashes it down quite nicely, and there it is, with a slight accurate gap, as it were. At this point, you can check to see if there are parts that you want to correct, like if you have undercut this bit over here, which doesn't look like it, looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. And I'll finish up the other side of the helmet, and then I'll show you what the completed one looks like. Alright. Now I've partially assembled the other year, and I thought I would actually show you what I mean by forcing the bits together. So now, as you can see, there's a little problem there with the way that that's been assembled, and that was my fault rather than the kit's fault. But you can actually just use the plastic, because it's malleable and it's plastic. Just shift it back and position the ear there, and then drill it through there and secure it, which is what I'm going to do. Alright. There you go. Helmet assembled. Yeah. Done. So next bit's the fun bit. Detailing, which I will show you how I do as well. Obviously the hobby mics go into there. Not very exciting. But yeah, next video will be what I do to paint. Thank you.